Part 1. I was the punchline mini backstory. They didn't just laugh at me, they raised their glasses and toasted to my failure. It was Thanksgiving, the kind of holiday that pretends to be about warmth and gratitude, but in my family, it was always about status updates, smug accomplishments, and who could shame who first. I walked into my parents' lavish dining room wearing the only decent blazer I owned, 3 years old, fraying under the sleeves, and within 5 minutes, I was already the butt of the evening. "Still chasing that fantasy business of yours, Ava?" my brother Marcus scoffed, spearing a slice of turkey like it had personally offended him. "You know, at some point, you might want to consider getting a real job." The room erupted in polite laughter, the kind that bites. I smiled through the acid in my throat, pressing my lips together so tightly they hurt. "I am working, every day, harder than any of you think." "Hard work without results is just stubbornness," my mother said, not even glancing up from her wine glass. "And we taught you better than that." That was when my father raised his glass. "To Ava, our family's favorite starving artist. That toast will stay with me until I die." They laughed, all of them. My cousins, my siblings, even my aunt from Connecticut who once told me she admired my spirit. I sat there with my heart thudding so loud it was all I could hear, a pit of shame growing in my stomach. And I realized in that moment, I was the punchline. 3 years ago, I left my safe marketing job and poured every dollar I had into starting a digital fashion platform. A long shot, sure, but I had something, a vision. I believed I could create a way for independent designers around the world to connect with buyers directly, no gatekeepers. I thought people would root for me. Instead, I became a cautionary tale. "Ava's still chasing dreams," they'd say at weddings, birthdays, funerals. Poor thing. When my apartment was broken into and my laptop stolen, along with 6 months of progress, my mum told me maybe it was a sign that God was nudging me back to reality. When I missed rent 3 times and spent nights wrapped in my coat on a friend's couch, I stopped answering calls. The pity in people's voices was worse than the silence. Every day I woke up and had to drag myself through mud. Mentally, emotionally. It was like the world wanted me to quit, and every step forward triggered some new disaster. Once, I walked 4 miles just to use a free co-working space downtown because my subway card had negative balance, and I couldn't bear the thought of asking anyone for money again. "You could always come back home," my dad had said in one of his rare moments of faux concern. "We'll help you find a job in the city, something practical." Translation: admit you failed, move home, be what we want. "No thanks," I whispered, swallowing the scream building in my chest. "I'm not done yet." Truth was, I was close to done. I barely slept. My gums bled from stress. There were nights I stared at my ceiling and thought about disappearing. Just leaving, letting the world forget Ava Montgomery ever tried to build something. But then came the night I met Eleanor. She was a friend of a friend, a tech investor who'd recently sold her startup and was looking to back a new project. We met at a dive bar. I was the weird quiet girl in the corner, drinking soda because I couldn't afford liquor. She asked what I did, and for the first time in months, I told someone the whole idea. No filters, just raw, desperate passion. She leaned back, smiled slowly and said, "Why haven't I heard about this before?" Because no one cared. Because I didn't look like a success story. Because I hadn't yet found someone who saw me. That night, she gave me her card and said, "Send me your deck, I'm serious." 2 weeks later, I had my first seed round. Not much, just enough to get a developer, relaunch the platform, and get out of my friend's spare room. The work that followed was brutal. Endless days, 30-hour sprints, rejections, glitches, threats to quit. But I started to feel something again. Not hope, exactly. More like fury, like I owed it to every broken version of myself not to stop now. And little by little, things shifted. A designer in Seoul made her first $5,000 sale on our app. A magazine picked us up, then a VC firm, then another. One night I refreshed my Stripe dashboard and saw 6 figures, and I cried like I hadn't cried in years. Now it's been 11 months since that Thanksgiving. Yesterday, I was invited back to my parents' home for another family dinner. This time, I didn't come alone. I walked in flanked by 5 of the platform's new investors. Billionaires, innovators, some of the most powerful women in fashion and tech. And I watched the color drain from Marcus's face. My mother's wine glass trembled. My father, The man who toasted to my failure stood up from his seat like the room was spinning. "Hello, everyone," I said, letting my smile bloom slowly. "Hope you saved me a seat." Part 2. You look different. My mother was the first to speak, though her voice cracked like ice under weight. "Ava, darling, you look different." She meant polished, sharp, unrecognizable. My once thrifted wardrobe had been replaced with a tailored cream suit that whispered wealth without shouting it. My curls were pinned back in a sleek twist. I wore heels that cost more than Marcus's entire outfit. But what really stunned them wasn't what I wore. It was how I stood, straight, silent, unbothered. I introduced the women beside me, casually naming titles that hung in the air like gold-framed certificates. CEO of Voxatech, founder of Argent Atelier, lead investor in Luinar Capital. Each of them smiled with a kind of grace that comes from building empires. Each of them knew exactly what this dinner was. "Oh, that lunar?" Marcus asked, face flushing as he looked from me to them. "I didn't realize—" "You wouldn't have," said Eleanor, cool as ocean wind. "Ava tends to stay focused on the work. She's not in this for attention." I watched my brother shrink in his chair. Dinner was agony. For them. They tried. Oh, they tried. My father, who once told me dreams were for people who could afford to fail, poured my wine with shaking hands. My aunt stammered out a compliment about my persistence before defaulting to awkward silence. And my mother, ever the proud queen of optics, leaned forward with a tight smile. "We always knew you had potential." I tilted my head. "Really? I distinctly remember you saying I was wasting my life." She blinked. Then she forced a laugh. "Oh, sweetheart, you know we were just worried. Parents say things." "Right," I said, then looked to Eleanor. "They were worried I'd embarrass them." My voice wasn't angry, just factual, and that hurt them more. After dessert, I stepped out onto the balcony. The night air was cool, and the city blinked in the distance, unaware of the generational knots being undone inside. I gripped the railing and tried to breathe. I should have felt triumphant. I should have been glowing with satisfaction, but there was a strange numbness instead. Victory is lonelier than I expected. Marcus joined me, awkward in the silence. "I owe you an apology," he said eventually. I waited. I didn't get it. "I thought you were just, another starving artist clinging to a fantasy. But you proved us all wrong." "I didn't do it to prove you wrong," I said, turning to look at him. "That was never the goal." He nodded. "Still, I was a jerk." "Yeah," I agreed, staring out at the city again. "You were." We didn't speak again for the rest of the night. Later, my mother approached me in the hallway while the others were saying their goodbyes. She touched my arm, gently, as if I were made of something fragile now. "You know," she said, her voice almost trembling, "you could always invest in the family. Maybe help Marcus with that real estate idea. We could—" "I'm not your emergency plan," I cut in, calm and clear, "and I don't owe this family anything." She blinked, as if I'd slapped her, but I didn't flinch. "You taught me that love is conditional," I continued, "and now you're shocked that I moved on without needing yours." Tears welled in her eyes, but I couldn't stop. Not now. I spent years thinking I was broken, thinking I was the shame of this family, but the truth is I was just too big for this house, for your expectations, for your fear. There was silence. Then she whispered, "So that's it." "No," I said, stepping back. "That's the beginning." The next morning, Forbes published a feature about our company's latest valuation, $412 million. I didn't even read it at first. I was too busy walking the factory floor of a women-owned manufacturing partner we just acquired in Kenya. My phone buzzed with dozens of messages from high school friends, former co-workers, even teachers. "Proud of you. You always had it. Remember me? Let's grab lunch." I stared at the screen, scrolling through names that once rolled their eyes at me, laughed behind my back, or deleted me from group chats. I didn't reply to any of them, but I did open one message, from Mia, the only friend who stayed when I had nothing. It read, "Still up for ramen Thursdays? I miss you." I smiled, a real one, because finally I had something worth sharing. I texted back, "Always." Part 3. Closure tastes like silence. I didn't go back to my parents' house after that dinner. Not for Christmas, not for birthdays, Not even when my cousin got married and sent an invitation addressed to Miss Ava Montgomery, CEO. They'd had their moment to change, and they chose pride. But I wasn't angry anymore. Not really. I'd spent too long burning fuel on rage, on the need to prove something, and I had. To the world, to myself. Now I just wanted peace, and the kind of peace I found was not quiet. It was powerful. 6 months after that dinner, I was invited to speak at the Global Innovation Summit in Singapore. I walked out onto the stage in a midnight blue suit, custom-stitched by one of our platform's first success stories, a designer who used to sleep in a textile market in India. I told the audience the truth about the cold nights, the cracked phone screen, the time I cried in a public restroom because I got rejected for a loan and stepped in urine, about what it means to build something when no one believes in you, especially not your own blood. People didn't just listen, they stood, and somewhere in that sea of applause I felt it, not validation, not revenge, freedom. Weeks later, I got a letter in the mail, a real one, handwritten, from my father. Ava, we were wrong. I see it now. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope one day you'll understand how scared we were, scared that you'd end up with nothing, like so many dreamers do. We confused fear with love. You didn't fail us. We failed you, your father. I sat with that letter in my lap for hours. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just let it be. Because forgiveness isn't always about letting people back in. Sometimes it's just unlocking the cage in your chest and walking out of it alone. On the anniversary of my company's launch, we threw a massive event in New York. Lights, cameras, celebrity endorsements, press everywhere. And as I stepped onto the rooftop of the venue, the city glittering beneath us, Elena handed me a glass of champagne. "To the girl who didn't break," she said. I raised my glass but didn't drink. Just let the bubbles rise and pop beneath my nose. "I did break," I said, over and over. I just kept getting back up. That night, I stood alone on the balcony, away from the music, and opened Instagram. Marcus had posted a story from his half-empty real estate seminar. My mother had posted a Bible quote about blessings. My father, nothing. They were all still living in that same house with its antique chandeliers and dead conversations. And me? I had offices on 3 continents. I had 25 full-time employees. I had girls in Uganda writing to me about how they used our platform to pay for school. Most of all, I had myself. I took one last sip of champagne, pulled my phone out and posted a single photo to my story. Me, in front of our company's logo, back straight, eyes blazing. Caption, "They called me a failure, now they Google my name in silence."